Thank you guys for joining our 6th session of our Women on the Rise series. I just kind of like to tell a little bit about what the SBDC is. So we're the Small Business Development Center. We like to, what we do is we assist small businesses anywhere from starting their business up until selling their business. So we're just here to help your business be successful. We are in partnership with Big Sky Economic Development, so we get to do a lot of great different things with their help. We love partnering with different people, and one of our favorites is Karen. So we're just so grateful to be able to do this. We all kind of had the thought together, like we've got to do something. 2.5 million women had left the workforce since the pandemic started. So we just really wanted to, here's that drilling. Really wanted to do something to make women empowered to be their own boss. So we've got some really great speakers today.
The impetus behind this, I was on the way to a meeting one morning, and on NPR, I heard that in October, 800,000 women left the workforce. And most of them left the workforce because it is just so much right now to take care of your families, to homeschool the kids, to keep everybody safe, as well as try and work. And so we thought, oh my gosh, we need to help empower women to become entrepreneurs so they can work from home or, you know, have their kids help in the bakery, whatever that looks like for them. So that was the impetus behind this. Kayla, are you good yet? Nope. Okay. So I'm going to have everybody do their own commercials this morning. Kayla generally does a very nice job, but I'm going to let you do your own commercials. I'll tell you, those of you who don't know me, I'm Karen Gross. I own Canvas Creek Team Building and Coaching. I coach both individuals and groups of people to achieve their next. I do that personal, Zoom type coaching. I also do team building, which is really an incredible experience. So whatever you need to grow forward and move past where you are today, that's kind of what I love to deal in. Veronnaka, tell us about you.
Yeah, so my name's Veronnaka and I own Swanky Roots here in Billings. I grow lettuce year round in our aquaponics greenhouse. And so we don't use any chemicals, pesticides, herbicides. It's all grown in water, and we use fish to power our system. So it's just a really neat way to get to grow and get to have fresh food all year round. And we're working on getting more veggies. We did an outdoor garden. We're going to do that again. I just got 140 chickens, so now I have eggs. So just trying to get a little bit more and just kind of be a really great food source for Billings and the surrounding communities.
That is fantastic. I'm so excited. I need to know about the chickens. Oh my gosh. Okay, Heather, your turn.
Thank you. My name is Heather Thompson, Bahm. I actually have 2 roles, but the reason I'm here today is I co-own Ray Ray's Gluten-Free Bakery with my husband, and we focus on gluten-free, soy-free, organic baked goods. We really just try to bring allergen-friendly baking to the community and help people that can't have regular food have delicious food on a regular basis. So that's why we're here.
Fantastic. Thank you, Heather. We're going to hear more from you in a little while. Penny, tell us your story. Who are you?
Good morning. I'm Penny Walker. I'm a business and development coach with a cosmetic company based out of Dallas, Texas.
You can say the name. It's okay.
Yep. And a sales director, which means that I work with my customers half of my time and develop businesses for independent women.
Fabulous. Thank you for that. Okay, so Megan, tell us who you are.
I'm Megan Kongaika. I am probably the one non-entrepreneur in this particular group, but I work for Altana Federal Credit Union. I'm their Chief Experience Officer here, which means I oversee member experience, community outreach experience, and training and development, as well as our social media accounts. And we also have an ice cream bus that we run out into the community. So we have a full-time employee who runs that. So that's kind of, I have a background in education, is kind of where I entered the workforce through public education, but happy to be here and happy to learn from all of you.
Yeah, you guys, we asked Megan to come on because we think of her as an entrepreneur. She has a very entrepreneurial brain, and she also is very interested in diversity. She's got a lot going on in your family and your world around that. And so we're excited to have your your input on that today. So those of you who are participants, if this is your first time, you need to know that this doesn't work if you don't ask us questions and if you don't respond to us. So talk to us as we're going through this. You can put questions in chat. You can also just come on and say, hey, I've got a question. That's what this is about, is these women are here to help you figure out how to move forward through a bias or through being exhausted, whatever it is that's kind of taking the steam out of your little engine. So it is okay to talk to us today. I'm going to tell you just a couple of things. When I was putting together the titles for these series, and we had been brainstorming the things that were really important to women, it was actually a guy who said, what about when you run out of steam, and what about when you run into a wall? And that was Kevin from SBDC and from Rock 31. And so when I came up with the title, I thought about that moment, you know, how we're all like, I think I can. And we get through the week, and on Friday, we're like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can anymore. I'm just exhausted. So that's kind of where the title of this came from. And the other thing that I was thinking about at the time was all of the times when I have had to speak up and use my voice. And my backstory here, there are two things that you should know. The first one is that I was told very harshly that I was too stupid to go to college. And that was by a teacher that I had had for 4 different years. And she said what an incredible waste of time that would be, and I shouldn't do that. And as it turns out, it took me a long time. It was like, I don't know, 45 before I figured out she was right. I wanted to be a nurse, and had I become a nurse, there would be dead people on every one of my shifts because I would not have paid attention to the details. So she saved a lot of lives, but she really defeated me before I ever even got started in the world. I was so shy, I couldn't talk to 3 people at one time. I thought that my job was to, just be a clerk in a store would be that would be the epitome of my career. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That's just where my life was headed. And I had a husband who just put his hand between my shoulders and said, you can do more, try this, try this. And then I had other people come into my world who kept encouraging me to try other things. The first exciting thing I did was started a cleaning business in Anchorage, Alaska, where I clean new homes. And I got to take my daughter with me. And so she would play while I cleaned. But that's where I thought, oh man, I really could be an entrepreneur. I had done things to make money before, but not really as an entrepreneur. So that took me into the idea that I wanted to make real money and have somebody else write the check for a while. And I went into car sales. Now you want to talk about bias. Try car sales in Alaska. Oh, we had a sales manager who would, on the first day that a man worked there, he would show them where to stand under the stairs. We had open stairs up to the 2nd floor. He'd show them where to stand under the stairs so that they could look up the girls' skirts. Yeah, that went over really well. Yeah, Penny, I appreciate your face. I was like, oh my gosh, this cannot happen. So that's the first place that I used my voice and said, that's not how we're going to behave. And in doing that, I became braver and braver about how you can make such a huge change in the world just by speaking up. And I don't think you have to use a bullhorn. Sometimes I just have to think that, or sometimes I think you just have to say, no, there's another way to do this. And you can do it very quietly. And sometimes that quietly is grouping people together and just showing the world this is how it should be done. Instead of screaming, that's not how to do it, you show them how to do it instead. I think that's very effective. So the other story that I'm going to tell you that I think you'll think is kind of funny is when I moved to Billings, I was traveling all over the country training business people. And I got tired of living in first class and airplane and presidential suites. It was exhausting. You can see why I would give that up. And so I decided that I would start a coaching and consulting business. Now, I didn't have anybody telling me how to do this because I'm a figure it out for yourself type of person. And I didn't realize how important it was that people actually knew you in your hometown. We had moved here from Alaska, and then I traveled all the time, and everybody's like, who are you? And you want to do what with my team? I don't think so. So I joined a networking club, and my first meeting at this good old boys networking club, I sat down at a table for lunch, and one of the gentlemen said, "Oh, honey, you can't sit there. This is
copies, but this.
oh my gosh." I'm like, really? And so I did move, but then I kind of took over that club and taught them that that's not how you do that, and got those old boys to write me big checks for the projects that are important to me. And I did that by quietly using my voice. And so that's what I want you to think about, is these women, as they talk to us today, how have they used their voice to make a difference, and how can you use your voice to make a difference? So the second thing that comes under this title today is just frickin' wearing out. My business has been, it just was going hard and fast after people figured out who I was and what I could do for them and for their teams. I got tired. There was so much to do. And then my mom got sick, and I spent a lot of time with her. And in March last year, I thought, I'm just going to give it all up. It's too much. I don't know how to move forward. Team building is kind of not a thing at the moment. I lost 3 events on one day, and I thought, okay, business is over. And I sat on the couch with ice cream and Netflix and realized that that was not going to be my story, and that by damn, I was going to figure out a way to stay in business and pivot and continue to impact the world. So I started a group called By Damn, and I did webinars for people and help people to just have their by damn moments where you said, I am going forward. For me, I wanted 2 things. I wanted to get in better shape, and I wanted to have a stronger business. And we're now a year later, and I'm like, oh my gosh, look what I've done. My business is stronger, and it's completely different, all because I said, by damn. But you have to sometimes have that internal tenacity to really dig in and say, I'm going to change, and I'm going to meet the world where it is. So we're going to talk about those kind of things this morning. And you participants, we want to hear your stories as well. But remember, as we go through this, that what you are doing is absolutely important to the world. Every day, there is somebody who is praying for the solution that you offer. So we're going to start with Megan talking to us about kind of some of her experiences in the world and some of her thoughts on this. Megan, it's all you. And you're on mute. But you look good while you're talking.
All right, guys, it's my first time on Zoom.
Right.
Gee whiz. Well, the first thing, you know, I was thinking so many things, Karen, as you were kind of talking, and you know, women in the workplace, particularly over the course of the last year, and how this has affected so many of us in I mean, just kind of negative ways, burned us out, a lot of us. I have to be totally honest in saying that I've been completely and totally privileged to work for who I work for. I think, you know, and being in the position that I'm in too, I'm not on the teller line. So I'm not in a position where, you know, hey, we need people here to serve our members between these hours and these hours. And so working from home for those particular folks wasn't necessarily an option yet. Anyway, I think more credit unions and more businesses are figuring out a way to create virtual spaces and flexibility in the workplace, Altana included. But I think, you know, in the world of female leadership, there's kind of two kinds of female executives. And I'm sure there's nuance and there's something in the middle there too. But my experience has been, you know, that there's women who get to the executive level who kind of look at other women in the workplace and say, well, I did it and I scraped my way to the top, and you've got to figure it out too. You know, you've just got to deal, like work twice as hard, figure it out. So there's those kinds of women leaders. And then there's women leaders who said, I did it. It was incredibly hard. I did have to work at times twice as hard as my male counterparts. And my personal mission is to make things easier for the women who come behind me, to try to alleviate some of that and create more workplace flexibility. I currently happen to work for the latter. And so when things hit the proverbial fan here, you know, a year ago, you know, Rhonda, our CEO, just didn't hesitate. I mean, it was what it was, and she made things completely, I mean, policy just sort of went out the window, and we had to figure it out. We just had to figure it out. So those first couple of months and working from home were grueling for me, just as they were for, I'm sure so many of us, figuring out how to navigate, through that. Never in my life did I think I was going to be trying to figure out second grade math to teach to my 9-year-old. I mean, everybody cried once a day. Someone cried at any point of time during the day. And that it was stressful. There were times when, you, of course, I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads. People are relating to this, I think, at a visceral level, but there were times where, you worked till midnight because you felt like, gosh, 4 hours during the actual 8 to 5 workday, it wasn't possible. You couldn't do it. You couldn't fit it all in. And so that was part of that too. My other privilege in kind of navigating, I would say, the pandemic in particular is I'm very fortunate that I'm in a totally egalitarian relationship with my husband. We are absolutely a 50-50 team. I'm a scorekeeper, he's not. So he tends to give more than I do, and then it works out, and I feel like, okay, we're even, and he really helped me. And I don't think that's a case, frankly, with a ton of my peers. I mean, there's so many barbecues and so many social functions that I attend and love to attend with so many of my great friends. And of course, it always happens where, it seems like the guys are over here talking and the women are over here talking, and their stories are not my story. I've been very, very fortunate to just be married to somebody who picks up the weight really, really well, and always has. And so that's part of what helped me sort of navigate the last year. The last year. I don't know if that's helpful or contributes to the conversation or gets people to think about how they could contribute to this conversation. So.
Yeah, it absolutely does, Megan. The first thing that you said that I wrote down, because I just thought it was a moment to launch, is that each of us are leaders. We're going to be leaders in our businesses. We're going to be leaders in the community, that type of thing. And you talked about how you've worked for leaders who have either raised you up or said you got to figure it out on your own. And part of our goal here is that you don't have to figure it out on our own. If each one of us gives just a little bit, we're all going to be stronger. And when you think about changing bias, I believe really strongly that if the people lead, the leaders will follow. And so when you're having those conversations with people at the barbecue and you're like, your husband doesn't mop the floor once in a while, it's really important to be able to have those conversations and help to raise people up. Yeah. Anybody have a question for Megan? And I can't see all of your faces at once. So if you have a question or a comment, just jump in there. Okay, so we're going to continue the conversation. Megan, don't go anywhere because we're going to have more questions for you. The next person that we're going to talk to is Penny. And when we decided to have this series, we very much wanted to include direct sales. Direct sales is a very interesting way for people to make money. It is something that I was first introduced to as a teen, and I said, I will never, ever go into direct sales. And then it happened to be the place where I had the very most growth in my life and made a ton of money, was in direct sales. And so your addition to this conversation, Penny, is very important. And I know every day you run into people saying, oh, direct sales, right? And you have to overcome that type of bias. So tell us your story and what you're thinking this morning.
Well, I have been part of Mary Kay for 24 years. And my history previous to that is that I was in nursing. I was a single mom with 3 kids working 3 jobs in nursing. And I was burnt out. Having 3 sons at home, they did nothing but eat and go to sporting events. And so I was on the road constantly and ended up working for a physician that turned out to be addicted to drugs. And my life became hell. as the other physicians in the clinic chose to put all their aggression onto me. And I ended up with a bleeding ulcer and hospitalized. And at that point, I said, I can't continue to live like this any longer. I have to take control of my life. And I didn't want to be known as Sean, Seth, and Grant's mom. I wanted to be able to have my own business and control my future, because I knew one day those kids were going to be gone, and what did I have left to stand on? And so that's when I started my business. I needed to make just a little bit extra cash every month. And I found that very shortly I was making far more at selling cosmetics to friends, family, and strangers than I was at working my job. And so so I quit one of my jobs and ended up marrying Prince Charming a few months later, and we combined our family of 6 kids. And that's when I knew that I really had to step up and make a difference, because I wanted to know who they were hanging out with, what they were doing, and be a leader for them. And, you know, it was very interesting. Being an entrepreneur, people look at you kind of like you're a second-class citizen, that you don't have a real job and that you're not doing something. And I wasn't used to that after having a profession in education, that people would look at me as if I didn't have any brains to have a real job. And so my passion and my mission became other women and how to make them feel great about themselves, because I'm a survivor of domestic violence. And there were many points in my life that I didn't feel great about myself. And so I wanted to be able to give back to women that opportunity to have them feel great, whether just in the time that we were together or forever. And that was through the products I offered, the spa treatments that I offered, or in a career opportunity. And so that has really been my mantra.
Penny, are there days where you have thought, oh, I can't do this anymore, I'm exhausted, or have you always been energized by it?
You know, I'm really a type A person and super energized, but when Rona hit, it was totally a flip in how to do business. My business model was based on seeing people, and I am a very social person. I like to be with people. And so my energy was elevated when I was around other people. So when Rona hit, it was definitely a learning opportunity for me to figure out different ways to be able to do business and still be able to connect with others. And so there have been days, especially being self-employed, that it's easy to work all day. We have no children at home anymore, so it's easy to work all day. And I'm just going to run to my office, but I choose to take a look at the day as 3 parts: morning, afternoon, evening. And I work 2 parts of a day and make sure that I take another part of the day off so that I can fill my cup.
Oh my gosh, that is such a great way to do that. I talk to entrepreneurs all the time, you guys, about setting the hours that you don't work, that all entrepreneurs need to understand. I do not work when the kids first come home from school, or I don't work during the dinner hour. I don't work from 9 to 7 in the morning, whatever your 9 at night to 7 in the morning. That when you set hours when you don't work, it really helps you to take control of your life. But that idea of there's 3 parts of the day and you'll work 2 parts of them, brilliant. I love that. That's very cool. So Claire said something in the chat box that I thought was really interesting. We're going to take just a moment and talk about that. Claire's going to come off mute. She said it's unfortunate that so many of us come to this position after being miserable or getting sick. And that just really hit my heart. It's one of the reasons that we need to do this series, and that you get to tell other people about what we're doing here and show them the recordings and help them figure out how to start. But Claire, tell us what Penny said that really struck you and why that hit a nerve. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think, you know, I've said before, I'm a healthcare provider by training. And so I saw a lot of people come through my practice that had terminal diagnoses or just really poor outcomes, and there wasn't a lot to do by the time they got to that point that they were seeing me or seeing my, you know, somebody in my practice. And it's so taking that perspective, and then from my own perspective of getting burnt out being a medical provider, trying to give so much to these people, working in a system that, in my opinion, is not working very well, our current medical system, and really having some health issues myself, and then just realizing like I can't continue doing this, right? I'm going down the same path that my patients are, and given enough time, I'm going to be in that same situation. And I've been fortunate to be able to take a step back and decide what I want to do, and what is going to be fulfilling to me moving forward. But not everyone has that ability or that capability. And I think that my perspective is, you know, I was raised, and you go to school and you get good grades, and you go to college, and you keep moving up the chain, right? And there's not a lot of education, at least not in my experience, about when you stop and you take stock and you say, is this helping me or not? You know, am I in a dead end situation? And I think that people could be doing so many great things if they had some time for like introspection and taking a moment to say, you know, am I doing what I want to be doing? What's fulfilling to me? You know, from my own personal perspective, you know, you have to hit rock bottom, and then you have to get yourself up to a point where you say, okay, this is what I'm ready to do. And then, you know, today we're talking about the big hurdle, or I guess all along we're talking about the big hurdles, but what better situation or position would we be in if we all started from, you know, sort of a middle level, instead of hitting rock bottom and needing to get ourselves up to that point. So I guess that's where I rambled a little bit there, but that's where I'm coming from.
Oh my gosh, it was super, super helpful. There are a ton of things in there I want to jump off on, but the one where I'm really going to hang is what you said kind of at the end. This is what I'm ready to do. In my book, What's Next, I talk a lot. There's a big chapter, it's called Stop. I'm a big believer in stopping your life and just sitting on a beach for a little while, or in some way reevaluating who you are. And my husband and I have been privileged to do that a couple of times in our life on purpose, and then once because he got hurt. And I'm so glad that each of those times we just stopped and said, this is who we are, this is what we want to do, and lived our life in a way that we chose to do. So you're right, Claire, people need to do that once in a while. I will tell you, at the end of almost every stop, we're like, oh shit, are we ever going to eat again? But it still made us stronger people. So Claire, thank you for talking about that a little bit. Does anybody want to add something to that or ask a question?
Can I add something?
Yes.
I think that the only thing I would add is that sometimes we forget about the secondary, I don't want to say trauma, but the secondary part that comes in. I think it happens to a lot of women where we're the empathetic people that others come to, and it compounds exactly what Claire was saying. So, you know, especially if you are somebody, if you're a practitioner and people are coming to you, but if you are a mom in the home, or you're the best friend, or you're the business owner or the manager, if you play that role of the empathetic person, you're now facing that secondary trauma of especially during COVID, where all of it is piling upon you. And sometimes we don't realize it, especially as an entrepreneur, when you're just trying to keep the ball rolling. And then I know for me personally, I hit a point where I was just like, oh my dear God, I can't take any more of this. And like, I just broke down one day. So just something to kind of think about.
And you don't want people to have that breakdown moment, do you?
Right.
Yeah.
Break down at all. No.
Yeah, it's that breakdown moment is hard. It's hard to watch. Yeah, it's better if we can avoid that. Yeah, so thank you for raising that point, Claire. And I think that it is women supporting one another that keeps us away from that moment. Don't you, Heather? Yeah. So Jen said that it's definitely secondary trauma and it's just as important to watch as direct trauma. Jen, I was trying to type to you, but I didn't get it done. So I'm just going to ask you to come off mute and talk to us just for a moment if you can. If you can't, tell me no in the chat. There is something that some of you may or may not know about, but it's called an ACEs score. And Harvard, they're the ones who studied ACEs score. And ACEs scores are adverse childhood experiences. And it's a ranking of 10. And it's things like you had a parent who was an alcoholic, you had a divorce in your family, you had a parent who was incarcerated. All of these things add to your ACEs score. And once you understand ACEs scores, you stop saying, what happened or why are they like that? And you start saying, what happened to them? And you take a different look at both yourself and the world. This is especially important with employees, I think. So it speaks very much to trauma. And Jen, can you come on and talk to us a little bit about secondary trauma and what triggered there for you?
Hi, ladies. Sorry, I'm kind of multitasking this morning, so my camera wasn't on. I work primarily in child protective services, so secondary trauma is a huge focus for us. But it's heavy, and I think we often, as women, excuse me, try to like carry the weight of our friends and our families and our employees, and not only can we do it all, but we can help everyone. And the hard part of that is then you carry the weight of whatever you're helping them with. And so it's really, really important for you to be aware of that transfer of that weight or burden or stress or grief or whatever the topic is. I talk to my employees, my social workers a lot about that because it's heavy when you do a job like we do, but it's also heavy when you're just constantly helping your family or again, your friends or employees, and it becomes such a norm for us. And so I think it's really easy to brush it off or excuse it. And I try to focus a lot on build up versus burnout. I read it or listened to a podcast a long time ago that just stayed with me forever. But if we, as whether it's direct trauma or secondary trauma, are constantly watching for the signs of buildup, that can help you avoid reaching the place of burnout. But it takes a lot of self-awareness and again, not disregarding something like secondary trauma as being less of a need or burden or stressor on you as direct trauma.
Jen, thank you for talking about that. I love the buildup versus burnout. That's fabulous. And you, Jen helps me with a page here in Billings called All Help, where we started by just offering to help foster families in town, and all of a sudden we're helping everybody in town with all kinds of things. And so she's on that a lot and helping people through tragic moments in their lives. Jen, what is your favorite role or your favorite way to build yourself back up? Because I have a feeling you have to do it pretty quickly, right? So how do you do that?
I think like a big thing that I prioritized again this year, and partially COVID, is therapy. I constantly am preaching that therapy. I think every single adult, well, and usually children too, but can benefit from therapy just to have a neutral, safe space that's an outlet. And it had been a while before, or since I made that a priority in my own life. And that has been amazing. And it doesn't even have to be anything crazy going on, but just to process life and good or bad or stressful or whatever it is, but process life out loud with somebody, whether it's once a week or once every other week or a couple times or once a month even. Just that check-in is huge for me. With managing staff in the child welfare system, there's the secondary trauma of the cases we work, but then also of the staff themselves. Like there's a lot of weight on me. So recognizing that I need that outlet has been really good. And then anything outdoors, obviously, like getting a break and just being outside and in nature is always my go-to in the summer, especially. But yeah, therapy, man, I think everyone should do it.
Well, and what a great time to be a therapist. When we first went into the pandemic, I was like, all right, who's making money during this? And it became obvious right away that divorce lawyers and therapists were doing great. So if you can go into either of those businesses, it might be a good time to do that. Claire asked a question in chat that maybe you could address just a little bit, Jen, but while you're sitting there, if you have a moment to maybe Google that podcast, if you can think of it, the Build Up versus Burnout, and share that in the chat, that would be fabulous.
Yeah, it's been a couple years and I've tried to find it before and wasn't able to, but I will look. I actually have to jump off this meeting fairly soon. So if I haven't found it first, Karen, I can get it to you when I do, but it was great. So I'm sure there's more than that one out there, but I will definitely look for it.
Okay, thank you. And we'll send it out. If she finds it, we'll send it out with the notes from today. You'll get a link and some things like that afterwards. Kayla will send that out. But I think just knowing the term, building up versus burning out, just puts it in our head about what am I doing to myself right now? Am I building myself up or am I burning myself out? And I start my day, I spend from 2 to 4 hours in the morning just with myself and my life and the puppy, because that's demanding. But I spend 2 to 4 hours before I hit the screen and start helping other people. And I know that seems like an enormous amount of time, but wow, am I ever effective now? Because I take that time to eat well and to exercise, and it just helps so very much. So Veronnaka, speaking of eating well, talk to us about what you're doing and where you've run into bias and burnout.
Yeah, so I have kind of a unique thing in that I decided to not only be a farmer, but also have a retail store. And then also now I get to speak with people. And so I get to do all these combinations of things, but I really do love it. And also just trying to educate people when we do our tours about the benefits of shopping locally and eating well. So it does take up a lot of time. I have some young workers with me and they want to start businesses of their own. And I love that idea, but then, it's 4 o'clock and they want to leave. And I say, stay 5 more minutes, stay 10 more minutes. How does that feel? And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, here's the deal. If you want to be a business owner, that's great, but it's not a 9-to-5 job always, especially in the ag industry. And so that's where, we can shut our farm store down, but I still have to feed the fish. I still have to deal with the chickens. And so it's really just this trying to definitely not discourage them, but give them almost a reality check ahead of time, because I didn't know that going into it. I mean, I grew up with my parents as farmers. I see them working constantly. It was never just a start, stop, or home. Holidays are great work days type of thing, but it never really clicked in my mind that, you don't always get to go home and just shut your brain off. And my husband, we started a lawn mowing company when we were in high school and did that all through college. And when we got done with college, he no longer wanted to be a business owner. He wanted to just go work for somebody, and really kind of talking that through what that meant. And when I come home exhausted, he's like, yeah, he understands it, as I'm sure many of you do. So that's been something just trying to figure out. I think for me, just having a really good support team. I'm definitely the type of person where I feel like if I can't do it myself, I'm failing, and I'm learning that's a horrible, horrible ideal. And so I'm learning that it's okay to lean on other people. It's okay to reach out to these amazing agencies that I just love so much, and ask for help. Like it's not a bad thing. And so that's been something for me, being in the agriculture industry. And also being fairly young too, I do see a lot of times I am scared to speak up. I'm part of different organizations now, and a lot of times I'll just kind of sit back, be quiet, and then now I'm learning that people do actually value what I have to say, and to not be afraid, to not think that I'm inexperienced, because even though I am new to this industry, I am fairly young, I still have good thoughts to do. So that's been something more that I've had to deal with, is just kind of the feeling of being inexperienced, I guess. I haven't had to, thankfully, a lot of the chefs that I deal with are amazing and willing to talk with me and like Sarah with Project Lunch, we talk all the time. And so it's been really great just to have those people. And that's something that just kind of that building up each other, being there for each other, even just venting to each other, because you can't vent to your customers, is really nice to have, because sometimes you really just need to get it out, and then you can kind of move on from it.
It's so true. You do have to vent, but you have to be careful who you vent to.
Yes.
Right? Spouses generally want to save us. They're like, oh, I'll get on my stallion and ride in and, you know, give you the little solution, tell you to quit, that type of thing. That's not what we need. We just need people to say, yeah, I've been there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Veronica, as you were talking, I thought about a chapter that I wrote in What's Next. And I promise we're not going to have story hour every time we do these, you guys. But Veronica, I think this speaks to you. I said, I learned I could calmly and rationally fight injustice, especially with a team. My voice was louder than I thought. I don't always use my voice. In fact, sometimes I find that keeping quiet is the loudest way to be heard. And that's what I thought about you. Sometimes when we're quiet, we are so loud, right? But I know this, when the people lead, the leaders will follow. I know that we, the people, when we work together calmly and diligently, can change the world. It just takes one voice, my voice, your voice. And Veronica, that's what I thought this morning, how we need your young voice to speak up quietly in those settings and say, there is a different way to look at this. There is a different way to do this. So I'm just going to encourage you to keep doing that, especially since you're feeding us. We should be listening to you. You guys, what questions do you have or thoughts do you have at this point? Anybody want to jump in and say something? Oh yeah, Megan, we're going to come back to you and let you talk about this just a little bit. Anybody else want to jump on and ask a question or say something?
I had a question. So Veronica, you and your mom started this business. This is unlike anything that we've ever had here. And so what were like some huge obstacles? Like, were people telling you like, this isn't going to work? How'd you overcome those?
Yeah, so definitely nobody really knew what we were doing. A lot of people still don't know what we're doing. And so really we just kind of tried to open up our doors essentially and get people in here and try to teach them. And I've tried really hard to keep it as a positive thing. A lot of people are like, oh, well, you must hate farmers. You must hate. I'm like, no, all food is great. You know, this is just how we decided to do it, and this is why. But definitely just trying to, a lot of people want to just kind of argue with me about, oh, well, stuff out of the ground tastes better. Okay, if that's what you like, that's fine, but you don't get it out of the ground in January. So if you want some fresh stuff, come here. And so that's my biggest thing, is just trying to realize everybody has opinions and I don't have to listen to a lot of them.
Yeah, I like to listen to them and then I still do whatever the hell I want. Veronica, I so love having your voice here this morning, and that you were brave enough to go forward when people said, I don't get what you're doing. Yeah, it takes bravery to do that. So good job. You guys, we have a bonus session today, which is 10:30 to 11, where it's called Women Who Know Food. And Heather is going to talk to us then, as well as Bonnie. But Heather, before I go to Megan and ageism, I want you to talk to us just a little bit about your experience with burnout, because that really was a marker for you earlier today.
Yeah. So when it comes to burnout, can I talk about the positives before I go straight to burnout? Like,
oh my gosh, please, yes.
I want to emphasize the positives because I don't want to make it sound like it's all bad. So with the bakery, like, it's not just a job or a business. Like, there's parts of our bakery that I 100% like, we can't replace it with anything else. It's not just making donuts or bread. We provide smiles to people that can't go into any other type of store and get what they can eat, right? It's one of my favorite stories is we had to make a specialty dessert that had no flour, no eggs, no oils, no sugar. And it was for a person who was celebrating a birthday for their husband who had terminal cancer. So it's those moments that really make our bakery special. In addition to that, I love our bakery because we are a resource center for people who are just being diagnosed with something. Maybe they don't understand celiac, they don't understand allergies to whatever it is. So I feel like we can provide that dual role, and the nerd in me gets really excited about being able to provide that kind of education to people. So I absolutely love our bakery for that. With that being said, I will piggyback on what, you know, a lot of the other people have said, that it gets exhausting, and you can give your heart and soul into your business and keep giving, and it's really hard to separate that. For me personally, in addition to the business, I also am a teacher. So then when COVID came and we pulled our girls from public school and now we're homeschooling, it was like there was just no end to the day. I feel like there still really is no end to the day. Like a typical day for me is still 12 to 13 hours. My husband works like 16-hour days because we're short staffed right now. So I'm not sure I'm the best person to even talk about burnout at this point in time. But we are learning to manage it a bit better. The first year that we had the bakery, I remember the holidays, which are our biggest time of the year. It was like 11:30 at night and I'm driving home and I'm bawling. Like I just made 20 pies and I'm like crying and I'm like, oh my God, I just made the worst mistake. I've led my family to misery. You know, like I was terrified that we had just made like the worst decision ever. But now I feel like we're okay. Like we have those long days, but we've learned how to manage it a bit better. And for us, I think a big part is that having that support structure, right? My husband and I are very good at being able to balance each other out. We're a yin yang. We're very different in how we do things, but it works to our benefit. Our staff is pretty amazing that we have right now. And we also work well with other businesses like Swanky Roots. But it took us a long time to get there. That, you know, that first year and a half, it was not pretty. We had a lot of hiccups and there was a big learning process to get there. When I did, like I looked back and reflected for that first year of operations, I had 22 employees that we went through. 22 employees. And like, not only does that I look at the track record and I think, wow, we are really crappy bosses. But like the expense on that, if you average that it costs you $500 per employee, think about how much money you just spent or wasted, or however you want to, you know, process that. That's a crap load of money. So we really had to sit down after that first year and like look at the numbers too. So once we were able to kind of process all that and then look at how many hours a day we were spending and how many hours a day our employees were spending there, and look at our family life all together, we were able to really just say, okay, what's important? How are we doing this? How can we survive together and not kill each other? So, I think the biggest way that we survive burnout is through each other. It's difficult to be in a business with your significant other. If you're going to do it, I highly recommend that you know that your relationship is stable. And even if it is, you're going to have days where you are not sure if it is stable. But that communication is really key. For us, I'm very lucky because Bruce will tell me, like, he knows the signs, right? He's like, you need to go. Or I can tell him, you need to go. And we have a great staff where we have given permission to our staff to say, okay, listen, here's the signs to look for Bruce. You have permission to tell him to go home. Or, you know, it's just that transparency is really important in letting everybody know what's going on, and that will help prevent the burnout. Keeping your staff from getting burned out will help keep you from being burned out, is what we've learned at this point in time. If that makes sense to everybody. I feel like I'm rambling a whole lot, but I feel like it goes up and down though, you know, like you have these peaks where you're like, everything is great. And then like a month later, you're like, oh my God, the world's gonna end. And then the next week, everything's great again. So I think that's like the whole thing of entrepreneurship, right? But I wouldn't give it up for anything else. Like I couldn't imagine not having this, because it's amazing at the same time.
That is so beautiful. That is so beautiful. You guys, when you are in the moment, and I like to say a couple of things. First, don't make a decision for 2 weeks where you're like, this is the worst thing ever. I'm selling, I'm quitting, I'm out. Wait 2 weeks to make that decision and write it on your calendar. Say, I'm gonna put this down, and on, you know, the 17th of March, I'm gonna make that decision, whatever that is. That helps to kind of even things out. But the second thing is knowing why you do what you do. So I'd love for you to jump into chat and everybody tell us what the mission is of your business. Because remember, there is somebody that's paying or that's praying for the solution you offer. And I think, Heather, that has to be part of what keeps you going forward. Those 20 pies filled bellies of people who could not in any other way have a pie.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think there's sometimes the challenges come along with too, like, you know, the struggle of trying to juggle everything as a small business owner too, of being an administrative person of one. You do all the HR and all the marketing and all the payroll, like that gets exhausting. Or like in Bruce's position, he does the operations all day, every day. And I'm sure he gets really tired of sourdough bread. Probably really tired of it. It's delicious, but I'm sure he wants to be able to do more creativity. But they're just, sometimes he just isn't able to do it. And I see Claire has a really great question about a more formal support group. And we're trying so hard to get to that point, and we've been invited to other groups to meet. And what we find keeps happening is that we'll like schedule to go to a group, and then an employee calls out or there's a special order for 20 loaves of bread, which is a blessing to have. But, you know, I think that planning part sometimes it's hard to follow through on that. So.
It is. And Heather, there are lots of things that you can do, especially now that you're established in your business, to help make those things happen. So I would encourage you to figure that out. And if you'd like to jump on the phone with me, I'd love to I'd do a session with you and help you think those things through. I'd love to do that. That would be great. You guys, I love that people are putting things over in the chat box now. Write your missions over there. And while you're doing that, I'll just speak to a story that Heather made me think of. It often is your employees who know how you're doing emotionally. And we were running a ceramic studio. It was the only time I've run a retail business, and Christmas was freaking crazy. And I had an employee who very much was usurping his authority in the facility. And one night I went home early and left him there. And I came back the next morning, and he had climbed on top of a throwing wheel and put a clay handprint as very high as you could on a blue wall above a window. And it was such an act of staking territory that I freaking erupted. I don't think I've ever erupted like that before. There were words I didn't even know I knew. There was a volume that was absolutely incredible. And after I had my little blowout, I went back to the kiln room, and there's my staff all standing there with eyes like this, wondering what was going on. And from then on, anytime I was kind of upset, they would say, is this clay handprint on a blue wall upset, or are you just upset? So it became a standard of just how bad is the situation. Your staff knows, they know what's going on. And it's okay, they should know. Megan, we're gonna circle back just real briefly here. Talk to us about ageism. What are you thinking about that? And what do you see?
Well, I'm pushing 40 here, so I'm not experiencing ageism probably quite like I had at the earlier parts of my career. But at EVMS, when I worked for Linan, she was really great about encouraging me to shut the heck up about how old I was and not bring it up, because she believed that I was strong and capable and smart and totally able to do the things that she was asking me to do. I think in healthcare in particular, and certainly in the banking and financial sectors, you have this very concrete system of hierarchy. And typically, to be on the top of that hierarchical structure, you have to have been someplace for a decent amount of time. To establish any kind of authority inside of that, you have to be, 40 plus. And the reality is that that's just not how workplaces are set up anymore. And I think younger generations have so darn much to offer. We shouldn't have fear-based workplaces anymore. People should be willing and able to chime in with the points of value that they can bring in any given day. On my team in particular, I've got a Gen Zer, I've got a millennial, me, we've got a Gen Xer, and we've got a baby boomer. And every single one of those individuals brings something that is incredibly thoughtful because of or in spite of their age. And I just think, a lot of times ageism is like sexism's, older sister or younger sister, and they go hand in hand. And so just a point of consideration.
So I love that ageism is the older sister or younger sister.
Play on words there. Yeah.
Right, little play on words. I also love, Megan, that you said that we're in a day and age where people should not have scary workplaces, but as a matter of fact, they do. And it is our job to use our voices to help stop that, either by starting a business where people don't have to be scared, or not doing business with businesses that are those type of places. We have the power to do that, you guys. So when you see bias happening, when you see ageism and sexism and all those things, use your voice to put a stop to that. That would be I think that would be a wonderful way to change the world.
Well, and it happens in really subtle ways too. Just to kind of chime in with one more point, but right now we're in the middle of overhauling our intranet, and we had considered putting like this button on our intranet that was like, voice your concern, right? So people could pop on and offer their anonymous feedback. And, the question to be asked there was like, why do people have to give anonymous feedback? Like, if we're in a position of setting up a structure where we're encouraging people to use this anonymous channel to tell us what they believe, then we are buying into a culture of fear-based leadership, and that's not who we are at all. Conversely, what we want to do is be able to create a culture where everybody feels safe to speak up at any given moment to their supervisor, to their peer, to whomever, with concerns or ideas that they have to make this a better place to work.
Oh my gosh, and I know you guys will figure it out. And I hope that all of us just took that little bit about not being a fear-based place to work, letting people have their voices. Incredibly powerful, Megan, thank you. You guys, so the next thing that I'd like for you to do, we're moving into the bonus session, and hopefully you'll stay because we've got two people who are going to speak to that, and we want to keep the conversation going. What I'd like to have happen right now, I'm going to put first a link to an online community called What's Next that I have. It's a free community. There are courses in there you can take, but where you can jump in and just get some support from me and support other people. It's still rather new, but I'm excited about what's happening there. So I'm going to give you that link. And then I would like for you guys to each link your businesses. You've told us some of your missions, but please link your businesses so that we know who we're sitting here and learning from with this morning. That would be great if you put those in chat. So we're going to transition over now to talking about women who know food, because so many people want to start food businesses. We like to feed one another. That's part of being a woman. And so Bonnie, we have all met Heather, who's going to be here with you, but Bonnie, we'd love for you to jump on, talk to us about the sourdough bagel, oh my gosh, and who you are, what you're doing, that type of thing. So welcome, Bonnie.
Oh, thank you, Karen. Yeah, I am Bonnie Perkins. I'm the owner and operator of the Sourdough Bagel here in Billings. And we've been in business for almost 3 years, and we're coming up about 10 months of having our storefront.
Oh my gosh, how's it going at the storefront?
Really well, really well. We're sold out today. We sold out at 10. So yeah, I'm starting to feel that like, okay, growing pains, maybe we need to hire more or something. So yeah.
That is a fantastic problem. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
So
yeah, we're grateful.
Yeah, so tell us where you're located and why you started this business.
Okay, we're located at 219 North 29th. That's just downtown, kind of by Barjan's, if you're familiar with Barjan's. I started this business first because I love bagels, and Grand Bagel had gone out of business, but more, not honestly, but more like what my impetus, what propels me to be an owner of a business, which is crazy, is I feel very responsible for my own happiness, and I was seeing I wasn't getting that from my current career at the time. So I decided I could control that part of my life if I was an entrepreneur, and it's been working out.
So that's what I was going to ask. I wrote it down because I love that. I feel responsible for my own happiness. And I think a lot of us feel that way. That's why we started our businesses. And on the days where I think, I can't do this anymore, it's too much work, it's not enough work, whatever, I look for jobs. I'm like, oh, was Altana hiring? You know,
Yeah.
I get that thing in my gut. I'm like, oh, I can't work for anybody else because I'm too bossy, pretty much. I know that my happiness is doing what I'm doing. And there are days where it doesn't always feel like that, but I'm so glad that you said that, Bonnie.
Thank you.
Yeah. Heather, we've heard from you a couple of times, but take us back. Tell us what is happening in your business that's exciting. Why did you start this? Just kind of get us and tell us where you are. That's the other thing.
Okay. So we are located off of Reberg and Grand. We're in the Bernina Sewing Center area. And we stumbled into this venture. So I have celiac. My oldest daughter has celiac, and then my youngest daughter is gluten intolerant. And so I had really done all of my own baking, and my wonderful husband was trying to surprise me with a birthday cake, and we stumbled upon Ray Ray's. So it was previously owned by another person, and she had been running it by herself. I have no idea how on earth she had done it by herself. I don't know. But she was ready to sell it. And so it had taken us probably 6 to 8 months, and she had said, you guys should buy it. And we're like, no way. And she's like, you should buy it. And we're like, no. And it just like was back and forth. And the good Lord put it in front of us continuously. And finally we're like, okay, we're going to do this. And I think it was a good decision. We absolutely love it. I lost my train of thought. What was the other question?
Tell us what's going on there. What's the
So what's new and exciting? So we are trying to look at where we go from here. So right when COVID had happened, we had looked at implementing a new process for delivering our product across the state. So we have a really cool trailer that can also potentially be like a food trailer if we want to go that route. But we're also looking at turning our establishment into potentially more of just like a gluten-free retail establishment. So we're kind of like weighing which option would be best for us at this point. So a lot of our clientele are the organic, healthy driven type of folks. And so when Lucky's closed down, that left us with the natural grocers. Of course, we love Swanky. Everybody loves Swanky. Thank you for being there, Veronnaka. but there's still kind of a void, it feels like, from talking with our clients. And so the idea of bringing in a allergen friendly retail location just seems to be popping up a lot. And so we're not sure if that's the next big step. I feel like it's kind of a risky one, but it also seems really exciting.
That does seem kind of exciting. I'm impressed by you thinking about that during this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like we have learned how to appreciate food more during the pandemic, and appreciate good food more. People are taking care of themselves. Most people are. Some people I still judge as they go out of the grocery store, but I try not to judge.
Well, and you know, the fun part is seeing how many people are trying to do more food at home. I guess from our end, we do have a lot of messages that we receive through social media, like, what ingredients do you use in this? And I'm like, well, I can't actually tell you all the ingredients, or we wouldn't have a business anymore, but here's a hint. And so we can kind of guide them a little bit, but there's a lot of folks that have been taking the initiative to really try to do a little bit more baking at home themselves. So
yeah, in 2018, there was more food sold in restaurants than there was in grocery stores. We ate more meals in restaurants than we did in grocery stores. And so you could see our world kind of shifting towards that. And I think it's taken a screeching halt. It's like, oh, whoa, now we're cooking again. And so we're having to adapt to all of that. So it's interesting, Heather.
Yeah, and it made me think of something, and I don't remember who was speaking, but like characteristics of entrepreneurship. And I always remember somebody a while back saying that there's a little bit of luck that's always required. And I used to like disagree with that. Like, no, you just have to have grit and hard work. But then right before COVID hit us, it was January 1st, we launched a new website. And we included the ability to do online ordering with this website, and we like revamped it and made it new, like nice and pretty. And I'm like, January 1st, and click. And then COVID hit, and it was just pure luck that we switched over our website when this happened, because then we were able to just send Bruce in the truck and go deliver everybody's breads to them, especially our older clientele that were in the nursing homes and they weren't allowed to leave. And that was it. It was pure luck. So, for folks that want to start up their own business, there's that percentage of luck that's involved. And I don't know how you make it happen, but it's there. I don't know.
Right? Yeah, it is. I think it was Frank Sinatra who said that success is 90% luck, it was 10% luck and 90% showing up every day, right?
Yeah.
It takes both. Bonnie, I'm going to ask you a little bit about starting a food business in the last couple years. What are a couple of steps that you took to get your business started? What are some things you would say are important for people to know in getting started?
I did it probably all backwards, because I started as a wholesaler, so I wasn't even doing retail. My wholesale license was the first license I got, because a coffee shop reached out to me and had actually heard I was experimenting with bagels. So the first thing, of course, was developing my recipe. I don't know if other people who are thinking of food places would even be a factor for them. But of course, investigate your licensing requirements, find a kitchen that you can use and afford, things like that. And I mean, for me, of course, it was making sure my all that was taken care of before I started marketing and letting people know. So that was about 8 months before we even opened, that we're making sure everything was in place. Can I say something to Heather?
Yes, please.
Hi, it's nice to meet you. We send all of our people who can't have gluten over to you. And
oh, wonderful. Nice to meet you also.
Oh, it's great though, because I know that your food is amazing for everyone. So they're not.
Thank you. Well, Bruce started making bagels. And so like in the past 2 weeks, I think I've eaten probably 20 bagels. And it's wonderful for me because I love bagels, but we have people that come to us frequently that are like, I don't know, they don't realize that we're gluten-free, and so we have to send them out to the right channels. And so if they want bagels, we'll send them your way, and if they want, you know, specialty whatever, we'll send them to a different bakery. So
that is so beautiful. In the workbook, you guys, I talk about the theory of abundance and how it is wonderful to know that there are so many clients that there's no sense fighting over them. There are so many people who are praying for what you are offering that it is much better to support one another and to be in collaboration instead of competition, because you both will run faster because of that. Bonnie, you look like you're agreeing with that.
Yeah, that's a nice sentiment, especially, yeah, I've encountered so much support from other, not competition, but, you know, especially women entrepreneurs in the community. So, yeah.
Excellent. Wonderful. Tana, you are being very patient. You've got your hand up. What question are you thinking about right now? Come off mute.
Sorry, wrong one. I thought it was something that Heather had said about the, you know, kind of how when Lucky's went out of business, that are you talking more like what they did in their deli with all the different foods in that? Is that kind of the direction that you were talking? Because I know from my side as a consumer, one of the things, especially when life events happen to different people, I use Lucky's a lot to be able to get meals put together that people that had a really diverse needs. And so it was really, really nice to have something that, hey, I could get some gluten-free and I could get this and I could get that and feed the whole family and not have to worry about, I don't know how to cook the crap or cook the stuff that, you know, it is.
You said crap. That was funny. So what we're kind of envisioning, and this is very, very like still in the building process, but you know, we would still want to keep our facility completely gluten-free because that's what makes us safe for celiacs, and that is 100% of utmost importance for our bakery. But it would be like a shopping place that would, it could be frozen meals, it would be pastas and other baking products, but it goes beyond just the breads that we have. So there would be some freezer items, there would be some boxed good items, and it just would have more of a variety. I mean, and from there, seeing where it expanded to. But I think, you know, some of the issues that come along with that is when you become a completely gluten-free facility, then you have to start thinking about things like packaging and what kind of glues they use, because there's gluten in some of the packaging they use. So it gets pretty complicated at a point. So there's a lot of thinking that goes into this, but I think like it would be, you know, in my big grandiose mind, if I could do a gluten-free Lucky's, that's what I would love to do.
Well, just bring Lucky's back and I'd be happy.
All right. Yeah.
Right. I like to be, I'm gluten-free by choice. And so, you know, when you're by choice, you're pretty, you know, easy about it. But I was serving a meal to somebody at a camp that I work at in the summer and happened to use a tong that had touched gluten food, and I was going to use it on the gluten-free food. And somebody was like, "Wah!" And I was like, oh, shoot, this is really a big deal. So Heather, I appreciate that you are that careful about it.
Yeah, we're pretty particular. And, you know, bless Bruce, because he's really good about it too, because he's seen firsthand what happens when that cross-contamination happens, like for me, and it's not pretty. So he's really good about making sure that you know, that sanitation process is there for the bakery, and he's really good about that.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so you asked a question a while ago, or you were, you know, thinking about expanding your business, and I used to be part of a group through SBDC called BEAR. It was Business Expansion and Retention Team. And businesses would come in and say, this is what we're doing, and is it a good idea, and what can we do better, that type of thing. And Bruce McIntyre, who is no longer with us, but he said something that was fascinating to me. And he said, the best way to kill a restaurant is to expand a restaurant. He said, people think as soon as there's a line out the door that you have to get more tables and you have to go bigger. And he said, it very rarely works unless you do it really, really well. So Heather, I thought about that when you were talking about that. And Lorene is going to address the mentorship program that we have now that might be a place for you to get info, but for other people on the call. So she's going to talk about mentorship. And then Kayla is going to talk to us about commercial kitchens. So Lorene, tell us what you think about the mentorship program right now.
Oh, we have a great mentorship program. We have, in fact, Megan is on our mentorship team, I believe. And so we have different professionals because our team, as business advisors, we don't claim to know everything, and we don't know everything. And so the best thing that we can do are find professional people that are willing to mentor small businesses and give some of their time for free, that can help you. So we have people that are in marketing, we have people that are lenders, we have people that are accountants, lawyers, just other business people, so that when people come to us with a question that we just don't have the answer for, and we don't claim to be lawyers or accountants or anything else, we just have a ton of resources. And so that's part of our job, is to hook you up with the right resource. We have great networks, and we can send you to those people to visit with them. A lot of times we'll also say to a small business that's starting up, and we'll say, find another business that's similar to what you're starting. Go talk to that business owner. Business owners love to share what they know and what they do, and steps to avoid and steps to help. I had a small business. I had a retail clothing store for 16 years. And I'm willing to give people all kind of tips that I learned along the way that are helpful and help you avoid pitfalls and make things a little bit better, or maybe make things a little bit easier. I loved when everybody was sharing about their husbands stepping in and helping. Mine did that somewhat, but I don't give up hope. He's doing a lot better job of it now than he did when the kids were being raised, because sometimes he was just busy working those 16-hour days too, and it was hard. So it's a big juggle. It's really important to keep that family life balanced. When I had my business, the first year I actually hired somebody to clean my house, which I had never done before, but it really helped me have some peace of mind. I made sure that I took some family time because my kids were first and second graders. I made sure I was able to hire a high school girl to come in after work to work with the other person, so that I could go home after work for the first few years, because it's important to try to keep that family balance. And it's really hard because you're putting in many, many hours of work, and you need to keep that business running, and that's really important. And but you also have to be sane. And I used to think once in a while that I'd be nice to people all day, and then I'd get home and I'd jump on my broom and I'd fly around like a witch. And that's not a good thing to do. So you need to keep all those things balanced.
Lorene, thank you for that. So I always tell people that I think balance is really hard to achieve. And I just put a funny little ping in or not necessarily funny, but a ping in the chat box so you can see that. Lorene, thank you for sharing that with us. Kayla, talk to us about commercial kitchens that people can use, because this is one of the most exciting things that happens in Billings for young businesses like Bonnie's.
Yeah, so I would love to know the kitchen that Bonnie used. I would love that. I could say that there was so many of them, but there's two that we really know of, and one's at the Fortune Culinary Center, so the food bank, and so you can use that one. And then there's one out in Laurel, and it's the Red Rooster Kitchen. And so those are the two kitchens that we have confirmed use of. And so the only tricky thing is because there's so little, it's hard to get into those. So there is a lack of, you know, ability to rent kitchens. And then also some of the things we hear is, you know, a lot of these businesses are going from, you know, they have their daytime job 8 to 5, and so they need more flexible hours of time to use kitchens. So I'm always open to hearing about different kitchens, but something that I always like to say is, you know, if you have a connection with someone at a restaurant, you know, reach out and see if you can use their kitchen in their off hours. That's extra income for them. And then it's your ability to have a use of a space. So, you know, it can't hurt to just touch base with an owner and just be like, hey, from, you know, 10 to midnight, can I use your kitchen? And they may be all about it, especially if they're like a breakfast lunch joint and it's just sitting there with nothing going on in the evenings. That might be a perfect time to snag it up. And then, like I said, it's just extra income. So those are the two actual commercial kitchens that we are aware of. But like I said, reach out to restaurant owners and just see if there's something you guys can work out. I know sometimes like American Legions and VFWs sometimes have commercial kitchens, so that might be an avenue to check out. We just haven't confirmed those. And so I wish I had more news for you, but I'm always open to hear if there's more about, so I can continue to spread that love around.
Great, thank you for that, Kayla. Bonnie, I'm going to come back to you in just a moment. Veronica, you said in chat that you've heard that it is a great idea to get help, especially with cleaning. And this is what I tell people that I'm coaching with. I absolutely think that you should get help with cleaning unless you love it. Some people, that's how they recharge. If you want to build yourself up, you go clean a counter, you're like, oh, I feel better. It doesn't work for me, but it works for some people. So Veronica, I'd love to suggest that when you guys hire somebody to do cleaning for you, that you remember that you are much more valuable to your family if you are sitting and visiting with them or reading to the children than you are cleaning toilets. The other thing that you're doing, as Heather pointed out, when you hire another female business, you are gifting them with the ability to do what they love to do and what they are very, very good at. So the person that you hire to clean your kitchen probably would not ever want to be a farmer. So you get to gift them with that time. So when you think about it as a gift that you give people, you guys, it's much easier to write that check. The other thing I always suggested to my team when I was in direct sales was that while that person is cleaning your house, you better be making money to pay for that person. So if they're there from 9 to noon, you are on the phone from 9 to noon, making money to pay for that. Bonnie, what else would you like to say at this point? It looked like there were a couple things that triggered for you.
I'm sorry if this is loud, my cooler just kicked on. Kind of what Kayla was saying when she's listing commercial kitchens, I have to say that was the most, it was at the beginning, so I'm over it, but probably the most, the largest hurdle for me to get started. Of course, I mean, you have to have a commercial kitchen, but the ones I found to rent were too expensive. The hours which they were available wouldn't work for bagels. And so I did just run into my friend who owned a restaurant downtown, and he's like, you could use my kitchen. And you still have to go through licensing. You have to have it inspected by the health inspector under your license and all that stuff. But if you can find, a restaurant that would lend you their kitchen in their off hours, I'd say that's probably the best. That's how I found mine. So
excellent. Thank you. Very good. You guys, I absolutely appreciate everybody's time on this call this morning, and I hope that you took away one or a dozen things that you can put into your businesses and your lives. There are a couple of things that I want to kind of wrap up in here. The first is to remember to collaborate, not compete. If each one of us buys something from somebody on this call, everybody is going to be raised up, and you know, a high tide raises all ships. So just remember to collaborate. The other thing that I wanted to tell you, I didn't touch on it a great deal here, but it's kind of a theme that is running through this, and that is to be authentic. If what you're doing doesn't feel good to you, don't do it. Be authentic, be true to yourself. There is no way that you can go wrong if you are true to yourself. So for Heather to start baking products that do have gluten in them is not going to feel authentic to her, right? It's going to be a total change. And so don't do that. And I'm older and wiser than many of you on the call. And I will tell you that it was such a big decision to stop coloring my hair because I was so into that. Brunette hair was who I was. But when I stopped doing that, I became more me and I got more clients because I was more me. So just be authentic to yourself and remember your mission at all times. The other thing I want to remind you today, especially when we think back to the first part of this call, is to use your voice, not just to support yourself and get help for yourself, but use your voice to make a change in the world for others, to help others fight bias and to fight the barriers that they need to knock down. It's very, very important to do that. So you guys, thank you for this. Come back next week and bring a friend because, you know, more women should start businesses. Next week, we're going to talk about my kids ignore me and you think I should have employees. Yes, I do think you should have employees, and we're going to talk about what that looks like. So thank you especially to all of our speakers today. You guys made a difference in my life as well as many of the people on the call. So thank you for being